Good evening. This evening, I welcome you all. Very special series, and we have this topic itself is very familiar to us, and yet still a lot more to learn and know. And would formally begin passing and invoking God's name, and particularly those joined today. Welcome everyone. The topic: global contributions of the Jesuits becoming all for all. Some of you must have known a famous book called A Jesuit Guide to Almost Everything, written by James Martin, American Jesuit. And of course, we have a famous, very famous, well-known person who knows, and who's been a Jesuit, and our rector, most of us are familiar with, and I don't need an intro. You don't need an introduction. So we straight away go to the topic, Jesuit guide or Jesuit contribution. Be it, name it anything that you want: astronomy, physics, science, art, fine arts, and calling it a map. And Father is here to enlighten us. And here I hand the session to Father Francis B. Xavier, is our rector, and he is our resource person today. Father, welcome, and it's your time.
Thank you. Welcome to the sharing on the global contributions of the Jesuits. As Paul would say, Jesuits become all for all. I would like to start with a note on the statue you see in the picture. It is the statue of St. Ignatius looking at himself. And this is in front of the college church in Fairfield University. At the bottom of the statue, you see examine. One examines oneself. Let us go through the memory lane of what the Jesuits have done for the betterment of the world. Everything starts with a Jesuit vision, and it has undergone many evolutionary changes. First, the Jesuits came up with the idea of care of the soul. So they meant only spiritual help. Soon they realized that it has to be the person. So they said care of the person, taking care of the temporal needs of the human beings. And then they realized it has to be holistic, which means freedom and dignity. In other words, it has to be the total liberation of the person. This means freedom from suppression, at the same time, freedom for leadership, a leadership with a social responsibility. And this social responsibility is for people to go into the world. And everything for the Jesuits evolves from education. I just to take a few points from the talk that Father Kolvenbach gave on the 7th of June 1987 in USA at Boston College. I was studying there. The Jesuit education is comprehensive. It is the formation of one's mind, heart, and hand. In other words, one should be formed intellectually and effectively with skill-based training or formation. Jesuit education, again, is world-affirming. It's not just for the local needs. One should have universal outlook because we are preparing our students to be global leaders. That implies social responsibility. It has to be the other-centered or altruistic, which necessarily brings in the promotion of justice. Therefore, the Jesuit education has to be multidisciplinary and value-oriented. This can be captured through research that the Jesuits do. Now, we could also glean from the general congregations of the Jesuits what the Jesuits understand about their mission. Take, for example, the General Congregation 34 says, I quote, the Jesuits attempt to discover, shape, renew, or promote human wisdom, while at the same time respecting the integrity of disciplined scholarship. Further, according to General Congregation 35, the Society of Jesus has carried a flame for nearly 500 years through innumerable social and cultural circumstances that have challenged it intensely to keep that flame alive and burning. And each Jesuit and each one groomed or formed by a Jesuit should be that flame. That is again underlined by GC 35. Each one is a fire that kindles other fires. There are many sparks, but one fire. The one fire is the formation for the social transformation. The many success stories, but in one history of the Jesuits. That decides the goal of the mission. The goal of the mission, as again General Congregation 34 says, for the poor, the Jesuits serve as major channels for social advancement through their universities. So they are supposed to have the affirmative action in order to empower the people at the periphery of the society. And the formation should be that they should become men and women for others and with others in need. In other words, it is a holistic formation based on values, which is faith that does justice. So this has to be done or realized through in-depth study and research. The Jesuit universities will promote interdisciplinary work. This implies a spirit of cooperation and dialogue among specialists within the university itself and with those of other universities. This we realize most, especially during this coronavirus lockdown period, where we need others, where we have to work with others, where we have to find solution for the need of the people. Here I begin with the Jesuit contribution. Some of these people like Matteo Ricci, Roger Poscovich, and Guy Consalmagno, who is still alive, is a Jesuit brother in Rome, will come to see what their contributions are. The Jesuits have been political advisors in the royal courts and royal families, and through this function, they were able to influence in political and economic policies. Take, for example, as the picture shows, there were two Jesuits in Akbar's court in Fatehpur Sikri in 1579. They were Rodolfo Acquaviva and Francisco Henriquez. It is said that Akbar was very often holding conversation with them, and they felt very free with them to discuss with them anything that he wanted. In China, there were 920 Jesuits worked between the years 1552 and 1800. They brought the science into China, especially during the dynasties of Ming and Qing dynasties. Matteo Ricci, for example, Adam Schall von Bell, and so many others. And they built the bridge between China and Europe. I take, for example, Abdullah, king of Saudi Arabia, decorated with Knight of the Order of the Golden Fleece, which is normally controlled by the Jesuits in the Vatican. So they were able to work with many kings from many parts of the world. You may be surprised to know this news that one of the Politburo advisors in China happens to be a Jesuit. So they are in all walks of life. And this European royal family service extends to many countries. In France, they were advisors or confessors from Henry III to Louis XV for nearly 2 centuries. In Germany also, most of the German emperors after the early 17th century, including all the dukes of Bavaria after 1579, the Jesuits were there as their mentors, teachers, as their guides in their political life. In Poland and Portugal also, they were advisors to most of the rulers in their time. In Spain, they were advisors to Spanish kings in the 18th century. Even in England, they were advisors to James II. And many princely families throughout Europe, they have been serving, and their main purpose was to influence the royal families in taking policies for the good of the common people. And they also had a tough time. They were becoming popular on the other side, one side, and there also opposition on the other side. The growing opposition to Jesuits' popularity and influence was ever growing. The Jesuits were labeled or stamped as papists, which was in conflict with other political powers. And the Counter-Reformation from the other side, the Jesuits became target for the Reformists and Protestants because the Jesuits were at the vanguard of the Catholic Church. And from the colonizers themselves, because the Jesuits stood with the slaves, since they said the slaves are also human beings, the colonizers had a problem with the Jesuits. On the other hand, as the Jesuits were advisors to the kings and the royal families, when monarchy fell through, the Jesuits also had problem, as you can see in any political situation. The Jesuits also started inculturation. They did not try to put in what they brought in from Europe. They tried to learn from the local cultures and they tried to adapt. But still, there were opposition from the church. The examples could be Matteo Ricci in China and Di Nobili and Beschi in Tamil Nadu, we can say that. And there was much demand from the monarchies of Portugal, Spain, and France because the Jesuits were fighting for the oppressed people, fighting for the equality and liberation of the slaves in the newfound world of South America. So there were much influence or force from the monarchies to suppress the Jesuits. The suppression took place in 1773 by a bull signed by Pope Clement XIV. But the Jesuits survived in some sections of the world. Wherever the Pope's bull was read, the society stands suppressed, but if it was not read, Jesuits could exist. So the Protestant Prussia welcomed the Jesuits, the Orthodox Russia welcomed the Jesuits, and Hindu India welcomed the Jesuits. In Mysore, for example, Hyder Ali welcomed the Jesuits to take refuge in them. He even welcomed the Jesuits from Goa. And eventually, the Jesuit order was restored in 1814 by Pope Pius VII after nearly 4 decades. And Jesuits, they have explored the world. The picture you see is that of Father Jacques Marquette. He is exploring from Canada into the USA. They discovered the existence of Mongolia and they drew the map of Mongolia. The Jesuits who came to Mongolia and made known to the world that Mongolia exists on the world map. They discovered the so-called Silk Way, that is the route to China. It is called the Silk Way because much of the silk was passed through this way. And in China itself, they drew the map of China. And Matteo Ricci, he brought astronomy to China. The lab he set up is still there in Beijing. I was fortunate to visit there many years ago. In Egypt, they not only located the Blue Nile, they explored the Blue Nile. They traveled along the Blue Line. And USA, as you see in the picture, Father Marquette explored along the river Mississippi, and also they did much work along the river Amazon. And in South America, the Jesuits started the republics. I'll say more about that. When everyone was buying slaves from Africa, the Jesuits said the slaves should be free. They bought the slaves, made them free, and founded 30 republics in the South American countries. And they also built cities. One example is they founded Sao Paulo, the capital of Brazil, between 1534 to 1597. And in our neighborhood in Sri Lanka, Ferdinand Bernal developed Sri Lanka, especially the particular area. And they did a lot of work on the moon. You may know that when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, he had with him the map drawn by Jesuits of the moon. So they have done a lot of work. And the Jesuit contribution in science and mathematics is enormous. The Gregorian calendar that we are using now was developed by Christopher Clavius. He was professor at Gregorian University. And Teilhard de Chardin, the paleontologist, discovered the missing link. It's called the Peking man. That is when human beings were going on fours, when slowly they were getting up. When they came to walk on two legs, the backbone was the main thing to be discovered, and Teilhard discovered that. He's a French Jesuit. And Roger Poskowitz, he developed the atomic theory first time, and he also discussed the structure of the universe. Later, others picked up the thread. Vincenzo Riccati, he started mathematics. He contributed differential equation to mathematics. The mathematicians would know there is the so-called Riccati equation still there in use. And Giovanni Girolamo Saccheri, he is the father of non-Euclidean geometry. He developed that. And André Taquet is the forerunner of calculus. From there, the other calculus came to exist. Auguste de Billy, he is an expert in number theory. He is the one who started with the things. And the Jesuits, as I mentioned earlier, they made enormous contribution to astronomy. In recognition of their astronomical works, 35 craters in the moon, the dark spots you see on the moon, are named after Jesuits. And 4 asteroids are named after Jesuit astronomers. The latest one is named after Brother Consolmagno, who is still the director of the Vatican Observatory in Rome. Matteo Ricci and Scholl, as I mentioned earlier, they were the directors of Astronomical Observatory in Beijing, and they are the ones who introduced mathematics in China. And Ferdinand Bernal is called the father of meteorology. They started analyzing the climate and they're able to foretell what would happen. And Christopher Clavius, I mentioned earlier, he also contributed much to the geometry, especially to the Euclidean geometry in the 16th century. And he is the one who supported very much Galileo. When the church opposed Galileo, Clavius repeated all the experiments of Galileo and found them to be repetitive. And from then onwards, the Jesuits supported the heliocentric universe. Angelo Pietro Secchi is called the father of astrophysics. He perfected meteorography, spectroscope, and even telescope. So Jose de Costa, he discovered altitude sickness. When some people go in the flight, they feel giddy and they thought something else, but he said it is the altitude sickness due to imbalance in the structure. And Francesco Lanatesi is called the father of aeronautics. He's the first one who tried to fly with a balloon. The balloon flight was started by the Jesuits. And seismology is another area where the Jesuits have done enormous work. They have done so much that seismology is called the Jesuit science. And even today, they are contributing so much. Daniel Linehan, for example, he started formulating the theories of shallow refraction, and they have been sending every day the surface waves close to Earth's surface. Even today, 54 Jesuit seismological stations are manned by the Jesuits since 1868, and one such thing is manned at Boston College, where I was happy to study there. And they also contributed in fine arts. Initially, the Jesuits said only intellectual formation, but later they said fine arts helps for the holistic formation of the people. So they promoted arts and architecture, painting, sculpture, music, theater, dance, and poetry as part of educational curriculum. Especially when they went to the South America, they found out that the natives were very good in music. They taught the music. The modern theater was started in 16th to 17th by Jesuits as school plays. Every year, the school should have a play. And for example, their famous play called The Wicked Witch of the West is the famous movie, The Wizard of Oz. Some of you might have seen that. And today you see the curtain, when you pull one string, the curtain comes from both ends and close, or they open to both sides. The sheer curtain, this was used by the Jesuits first time in the school theater. And the Jesuit style in building is called, they wrote to the book Ratio Edificiorum, which is how to build. They advocated Baroque architecture. There are two types of buildings. One is Baroque. I'll show you an example. Another is Gothic. The best example of Gothic is Loyola Church. The Gesù in Rome is the best Baroque style of the architecture. And some of the movies on the Jesuit life won many Oscars. Some of the movies are On the Waterfront, The Mission, Black Robe. You might have seen The Mission by all means. And the US Jesuit universities insist on all should have courses on arts and science. This is what we are also doing in our university colleges today in India. This is the Baroque style. This is the Gesù. This is called the Mother Church of the Jesuits in Rome. You could see the facade and the interior look, and then the fresco painting of that. This is what the Jesuits advocated and promoted. So they also contributed to the linguistics. They developed dictionaries and lexicons in the native language in North America. And Gerald Manley Hopkins is a well-known English poet, and he's honored in the Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. In India, if we take the Northeast Indian languages, the Jesuits adopted the Roman script to these languages. Some of the Jesuits I would like to mention, Camille Bulke, a Belgian, he was actually engineering Hindi language. He did the first doctoral thesis on Hindi language. At that time, the doctoral dissertation has to be in English. He said, I am doing doctoral dissertation in Hindi. It has to be in Hindi. So they allowed him. He translated New Testament into Hindi, and he also brought out the English Hindi glossary. He was awarded with Padma Bhushan. Henry Heras, you might have heard about him from Mumbai, a Spaniard. He is a well-known archaeologist and a historian. He was an expert in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilizations, and also Indus Valley civilizations. His volumes and volumes are yet to be read and understood and researched on. Thomas Stephens from England, he was expert in Konkani. He introduced Roman script to Konkani. He wrote Krista Purana in Marathi, and which is an epic on Jesus. And Carlos Gonzalez Vallis, a Spaniard, he was an expert in Gujarati. He's coined words in Gujarati and was the first foreigner to receive Gujarati awards for literary contribution. As you see, many of them were coming from other countries, adapt themselves to the local culture and language, and they develop it, they make contributions. Coming to Tamil Nadu, you are very familiar with this information. Robert de Nobili, he was a scholar in Sanskrit, Telugu, and Tamil. He's an Italian by birth. He coined the words which we are using today: Kovil, Arul, Prasadam, Guru, Vedam, Pusai. All these things he coined, and he authored catechism, what we call the Penny Catechism. It was done by him. Another Tamil scholar and another Italian, Constantine Beschi, he wrote the famous epic Thembavani in Tamil, and he also wrote the first novel, Paramartha Kuruvin Kadai. He developed or brought a lot of modifications to Tamil grammar through the book Chaduradhagaradi, and he also wrote other books, Tonul and so many other things. He is called Father of Tamil Prose. He translated Tirukkural in Latin with commentary, and that way Europeans came to know of the treasures of Tirukkural, and he is the one who built the shrines in Pundi, Yalakurichi, Kamanaikanbatti, and Konangupam, where you see the beautiful statues of Our Ladies are there. Henry Henricus, another one scholar in Tamil, he printed the first book in Tamil in 1554. At that time, there was no printing press. He took a couple of people from Tamil Nadu, went to Portugal, composed and printed. The first book he printed is called Thambiran Vanakkam, composed by de Nobili. And you know John de Brito, how he was a missionary, adapted his lifestyle in Ramnad area. And Jerome de Sousa, who was the principal of Loyola College, who was also one of the authors of Indian constitutions. He represented India in the UN 4 times. And K.V. Peter, some of us would remember, he was the postmaster in Shembaganur. He was awarded as the best postmaster in India in 1983, and he was decorated with Padma Shri. So here just I want to show the pictures of Robert de Nobili and Constantine Beschi, how they adapted themselves to Indian way of living. Now we come to what the Jesuits have invented. I just give a few examples. It's not exhaustive. If you want more of this, you could read it in the forthcoming book that I am just completing. One chapter is devoted on this. Nicholas Owen discovered the trapdoor. Trapdoor is something which others cannot find out, only you know where it is. If you read Edmund Campion, you can come to know that he was hiding through the trapdoor. Quina or quinine is discovered by Jesuits. The bark of a tree, you see at the bottom right, the Jesuits learned from the natives, and they used it for malaria already in the 16th century. And today, even you see in the US, they say this hydroxyquinine could be used for corona infection. This is already developed by the Jesuits. And they also developed the tonic water, which is medicinal, but they are not responsible for gin and tonic. They discovered megaphone and germ theory. When people started getting sick, they thought it is the wrath of God or something they have done, but it is Athanasius Kircher in 17th century said there is germ. That is the beginning of the virus and other things which he discovered. And Gaspar Schott, he discovered in engineering the gear system. You know, in a mechanical watch, the whole thing runs with the system, or any industries run with the system. It is the Jesuit invention. And Robert Busa is the one, very interesting to note. Today, if you are able to type whatever you want in the computer, he is the one who did the hypertext into the computer. in 1949. Earlier, the computer was used only for calculations. He's the one who introduced the text. And Clavius invented the Vernier scale. People who are doing physics and chemistry know it is used for minute calculation. He's the one who discovered the Gregorian calendar. And Francis Line, he discovered the sundial. If you go to old cities, especially in Europe, you have the sundial before the actual watch was discovered. He developed it for Charles II already in 1669. Then they had other inventions also. Steiner developed the refracting telescope using two convex lenses, as you see at the bottom. Nicholas Zücki, he developed the reflecting telescope. Verbeest, he developed the cannon. People started criticizing the cannon is used for the destruction of the people, but he used it mainly for the building purposes. And Francesco Grimaldi, he developed the theory of diffraction of light. When I mentioned diffraction or diffraction, you remember C.V. Raman, his Nobel Prize was on diffraction of light, Raman effect, why the sky looks blue, why it looks reddish in the evening or yellowish in the morning, all because of the diffraction of light by the dust particles in the sky. This was proposed by Grimaldi. Lanatesi is called the father of aviation. And he also developed seedless fruits. Today we have fruits without any seed. And we have to think with gratitude the Jesuit introduced grapes in Tamil Nadu. They brought probably from France. And the Kodaikanal Lake, as you see on the right, was designed and created by a Jesuit brother, an Italian brother who developed that. So many other inventions are there. Now I am getting into what I mentioned in passing, the Jesuit reductions or Jesuit republics. They are now called Paradise Lost. In the 17th and 18th century, the colonial powers from Portugal and Spain, they started finding their colonies in Paraguay, Uruguay, Chile, Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and Bolivia. They brought the slaves from Africa, and the Jesuits said they are human beings. But people did not listen to them. So in order to prove what they did, they also bought the slaves. The slaves would be brought to Cape Verde between Africa and Europe, where they will be traded against horses. From there, word comes the horse trading. And they took them to their republics, but they told them, you are all free. We work on cooperative basis. They were thriving, and that started butterfly effect. Other colonial slaves started rebelling, and that was one of the reasons that created problem for the Jesuits. Because the Jesuit republics promoted autonomy, liberty, and freedom for the people, and the slaves had administrative freedom. They had self-defense mechanism of their individual republics. And they also gave them education. They trained them in music, embroidery, and sculpture. You'll be surprised to know that they were working Monday through Friday. Saturday, Sunday, they had time to spend on music, embroidery. On Sunday after the Mass, they had review of the week and planning for the next week. What we are doing today in the corporate world, they have been already doing it in the 16th century. And the slaves were taken to Europe for competition. Their embroidery and their sculpture and their singing were very much appreciated. Even it brought some money into their colonies. Here you see on the top one of the church in dilapidated conditions. On the right, an angel, the sculpture of the people. And the bottom two are how their people's residents were there. The church will be in the center, people will be around, and there is a big ground where they can meet very often for their meetings. And later, the Jesuits are also were sensitive to the needs of the people. In 1980, Father Pedro Rupe founded the Jesuit Refugee Service. The refugees are those who are forcibly displaced, or those who are seeking asylum in other countries, or who are internally displaced and undocumented migrants. The Jesuits should be at their service. It originally started with Vietnamese boat people. Later, it was extended to Africa, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Afghanistan, and they are working in 51 countries at least. What is their service? Education, emergency assistance whenever there is natural disaster, health and nutrition, and social service. The beneficiaries are more than 600,000. Today, about 80 Jesuits are working with the help of 1,400 volunteers, and they are very busy. And you might know one of the Jesuits who are working for these refugees, Father Prem Kumar of Tamil Nadu Jesuit, was abducted in Afghanistan by the Taliban, but thank God he was released after 8 months. Now he is working in Sri Lanka for the people. And from there comes the Jesuits' preferential option for the poor. In the Old Testament, God's option is always for the poor. Every now and then you read God saying, orphans, widows, strangers, and refugees are close to my heart. Respect them, love them, give them what they need. And in the New Testament, Jesus took his stand with the poor and the marginalized. Even the examples, the parables we give, the Good Samaritan or his conversation with Samaritan woman, just to show how much he stood by the poor people. And Ignatius himself opened a school for the poor people. When education was very costly, he opened a school and announced education gratis. This Roman college, founded in 1551, is today's the Gregorian University. And in the General Congregation 32 in 1968, the Jesuits revisited their original charism and they came up with this preferential option for the poor and the marginalized. In Tamil Nadu, this is interpreted as the option for the poor and the Dalits, as a policy to educate, to employ, and empower them. And we prefer the economically poor and socially marginalized. And in North India, it is option for the tribals, as it is the option for the Dalits in South India. All these things the Jesuits tried to bring up through their education. They are the ones, Jesuit order was founded in 1540. Already in 1599, they wrote the Ratio Studiorum, plan of studies, how one should teach. How a teacher, when he comes to the class, he gives a summary, gives outline of the class, and teaches the class. At the end, gives a summary, and he gives the preview of the next class and gives homework, which even today we are doing that. And this is called Ignatian pedagogical paradigm. In a given context, based on your experience, you reflect what we could do for the people. And you do it, but what is important is evaluation. Our exam is an evaluation. From there, your experience is enriched. That's why in our colleges, every 3 years, we are revising our syllabi, our modality of teaching, all this coming from this IPP. The goal is integral formation. It is not just information, but the holistic formation as leaders for social transformation. So this is information, which is intellectual in nature, formation, which is emotional and holistic in nature, and transformation of the society based on values. All these things have to be incorporated in the education. And this is what they were doing in the University of Central America in El Salvador. They were fighting for the people, and the government, one fine day, killed all the 6 Jesuits along with 2 housemates because they proclaimed war on poverty. And within 24 hours of their assassination, about 40 Jesuits wrote to Father General, "We are ready to go and take up the work." And the work goes on even now. The Jesuit education is empowering the people, especially the marginalized, and they will do that. And they also have contributed very much to spirituality. The spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius is the thing that it is appreciated today. You may know that after the Bible, it is the spiritual exercises that is printed most in the world. And Chris Loney would say the Jesuits are formed through twice 30-day retreat and twice 15 minutes examination. We are supposed to make this 30-day retreat at the beginning of our formation, end of the formation, and every day we have to spend 15 days how we have spent the day in the presence of the Lord. It is this that is the dynamic force, he would say. And the Ignatian contribution to prayer is contemplation. It is not theoretical or reflective. It is making use of the imagination. The imagination makes the inner movement, which helps to decide and execute. We will say, for example, take anything that is happening either in the life of Jesus or in today's life. Identify yourself with the people, how much they suffer, and you make it your own, and then that will propel you to the action. Because the inner decides the outer. One should invest one's heart and the energy, and then action would come automatically. Therefore, the intellectual as well as affective formation should be effective only when there is union of mind, heart, and hand. So the contemplation in action, which is use of imagination is prayer, comes out as the faith that does justice. You may have faith that is between you and God, but when you do justice, that is between you and the people. In this context, Jesuits tried to become all for all. They were working Jesuits in East Berlin. When East Berlin was cut off from the world, the Jesuits are working in their workplaces. During the break time, they will help. There were Jesuits working as taxi drivers in France. They'll be driving people from airport. On the way, they will counsel them if they need. There were circus clowns, at least one of them I met in the US. One Jesuit, Nick Weber, had his own circus in Santa Clara. I asked the Jesuit clown, "What is your mission?" "My mission is to bring happiness to the people." You know, today's world, people don't have time for themselves. I bring happiness to them. And also, speech writers for presidents and popes are there. One such person is Nell von Breuning, is a Jesuit in Germany. He wrote that encyclical Rerum Novarum for Pope Leo XIII. This was the beginning of workers' union in the Catholic Church. And John McLaughlin was the speechwriter for President Nixon in the United States. Similarly, John Favreau was a speechwriter for President Obama. And you may be happy to know that Ron Smith won the Oscar Award for the best documentary entitled The Labyrinth. And Daniel Berrigan is the one who spent most of his time in the prison because he was fighting for human rights. And you may know the first Asian Zen master is our own Father Ama, who is in Kodaikanal Hills. And they also, now we are coming to the alumni, they have formed global leaders. René Descartes and Michel Foucault, the French philosophers, Martin Heidegger, German philosopher, Hans Küng and Karl Rahner and Henri de Lubac, the German and French theologians, Voltaire, the famous person, the French Enlightenment writer, who was also a historian and philosopher, was a Jesuit alumnus. Alfred Hitchcock, the famous movie, he was the British film director. And even popes Benedict XIV, Innocent XI, Pius XI, Pius XII, Paul VI, John Paul I, and today Pope Francis, all are Jesuit alumni. Fidel and Raul Castro, the former and the present presidents of Cuba, have been Jesuit alumni. And we go over to some of the world leaders. Very few names I am giving here for want of time. Julius Nyerere, the first Tanzanian president, we are happy he was an alumnus of Loyola College, Chennai. Robert Mugabe, president of Zimbabwe. Tony Abbott, former Australian Prime Minister. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, former Prime Minister of Canada. Bill Clinton and Lyndon B. Johnson, former US presidents. Vincent Fox, president of Mexico. Charles de Gaulle, former president of France. Park Geun-hye, president of South Korea. Edward Finch Adami and Guido Di Marco, former prime minister and president of Malta, respectively. Benigno Aquino III and Gloria Arroyo, the former Filipino presidents, and Dukakis, former Belgian president, and Mauricio Funes, president of El Salvador, and many other. At least I have doubled the list in my paper. You could read it later. And the list continues even to the present day. The Eduardo Lopez de Romana, president of Peru. Ruud Lubbers, former Prime Minister of the Netherlands. Sir Frederick Weld, former Prime Minister of New Zealand. Ian Alda, American movie actor and TV star. Now here comes the authors and Nobel laureates. Ivo Andrić from Yugoslavia. James Joyce from Ireland. Maurice Maeterlinck from Belgium, and some more people. Joseph Murray was American surgeon and also a Nobel laureate. And William Casey, American former director of the CIA. Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York State. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, author of the Sherlock Holmes detective stories. Timothy Egan, Loretta Tofani, and Edwin Jones. These are the people who won Pulitzer Prizes as writers. And Carlos Ghosn, CEO of Renault and Nissan Motors. Till recently, he was the president there. And some of the present ones I would like to say. Anne Mulcahy, the former chairman of CEO of Xerox. Paul Otellini, president of Intel Corporation. Cartel Ham is the general of the US Army. John Leahy, chief operating officer of Airbus. And Mark Thompson, director general of the BBC. Lisa McDina and John Mitchell, US attorney generals. Thomas O'Neill, former speaker of US Senate. And Claudia Tecanque, former chief justice of the Philippines. Edward Douglas White, the 9th Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Now let us come to India and even Tamil Nadu. You know that Venkataraman and Abdul Kalam, they were our former presidents of India. Jyoti Basu, the Communist Party leader for many decades and former chief minister of West Bengal. Viswanathan Anand, Indian chess grandmaster. Anand and Vijay Amritraj, tennis players. Rahul Dravid and Sourav Ganguly, former Indian cricket captains. Zakir Hussain, Indian musician. N. Ram, chief editor of The Hindu. Of course, any number of film actors, Sivakumar, Vijay, Vishal, Vikram, so many others are there. All these formations are with the basic assumptions of Jesuit mission. Namely, each one is a potential leader, and each one is unique, and each one has something to offer to the society. And this is the focus of the Jesuit mission, namely empowerment of the marginalized. And the key to this empowerment is education. So all this wonderful work the Jesuits have done in various walks of life, basically from education. When they began, education was one of their ministries, but later it became the primary ministry of the Jesuits. That is why the Jesuits should be ready to go where there is greater need. As Ignatius would say, For the Jesuits, even the road should be home. To do what is most needed for the people. There is no fixed mission for the Jesuits because the Jesuits find the finger of God and they decipher the signs and needs of the times and make themselves available to the work of the people. And what is the inner propelling dynamism? Ignatius always asked the Trinitarian questions. Whatever you do, you should do the best. You should be a man of marches to do ever more and ever better. And the propelling dynamism is, what have I done? What am I doing? And what ought I to do? To do ever more and ever better for the needy and the marginalized. This is the mantra of the Jesuits, to do their best. This is the reason how they are able to contribute so much to the world. Because their ultimate goal is other-centered life, social responsibility. Life should be fruitful and joyful. The fruitful means it should be useful for others. The Jesuit education doesn't mainly teach how to earn money, but it should teach how to be happy. And one should have the joy within oneself. The Jesuit education would say, keep in touch with yourself. Listen to your heart, not only to your mind. And that way, you should be the light of joy that is shining in the good works for others. And this is what the Jesuits have been doing. This is what they have done. I have just given just a minimum as a cursory of what the Jesuits have done. Thank you for listening. If you have anything to clarify, ask. I will be very happy to answer you. Thanks for your attendance. Thanks for your listening.
Friends, good evening. Once again, I express my gratitude to Father Rector on global contributions of the Jesuits. So now what we could do is you are invited to type your questions on the chat box. In the meantime, Father would run the slide because some of us came a little late. Father would quickly skim through the entire 37 slides. In the meantime, if you have questions, you type on the chat box, and then I would facilitate. If you are interested, we can even send you the presentation, PPT, on request. We would proceed with that. So I invite Father Rector to quickly skim through the slides from beginning till the end. And in the meantime, please type your questions on the chat box. Friends, we have roughly around 80 people on Google Meet and 60 people on the live streaming on YouTube. Certainly, those who are interested, I will send the presentation PPT on email. In the meantime, most of you actually expressed your gratitude, expressed your appreciation to Father Rector. Very inspiring talk, very clear speech. Evidences and presentation is really appreciable and inspiring too, as well. Very impressive account. So pouring out all your appreciation to Father Rector. I'm just waiting for any questions or clarification in the meantime. Right. I pick up a question from the YouTube live streaming. Um, Varghese has asked, what is the contribution of the Jesuits in evangelization during the recent years? That is his question. What is the contribution of the Jesuits in evangelization during the recent years? Question from Varghese. Father, you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the last general congregation, the 35th general congregation, when the Pope
Yes, Father, I muted him.
yeah, the Pope asked the churches that you should be ready to go where others cannot go. That was the recommendation or direction given by the Pope to the 35th General Congregation. So wherever the Jesuits were asked to go, they went. Even recently, in the very volatile place like the Middle East, a Jesuit was sent as the bishop. And a few months ago, one of the Jesuits who have been working there was killed. But still, people are ready to go wherever there is need. The Jesuit, as Ignatius said, should be ready to go where there is greater need. The many places, especially in the North India, in the Far East, in other places, the Jesuits are going. Anytime the general asks them to go, they are going.
Okay, Father. Father, thank you. We have another question from Judy Akata. What is your contribution during this time of COVID-19 crisis? Father, you hear me? Do you want to answer? You can answer also later.
I can answer. Apart from my administrative works, I tried to put together all the papers and talks I gave on Jesuit education, and a book is ready to be published. And also, I sent about 3 papers for publications. They have been accepted. One has come out, and the other 2 will be coming soon. So these are my intellectual thing. Other than that, as the convener of the Disaster Management Committee of the province, I have been working how we can help various people in the province, especially the migrants from Loyola College, helping hand. I have been busy with that. So I have been kept busy all the time.
Okay. Thank you, Father. Thank you for your... And there is a continuation of appreciation coming in from different persons. Of course, again, I have a question. I mean, Dr. Xavier Maimiraj has a question. Could you please give a priority to bring the sanitary workers under your service cover of Loyola response to COVID? Father, you get my question?
Yeah.
Xavier Maimir is asking. Okay. Yes,
we
Father.
are trying to do that. In fact, we have been discussing with our PRO whether we could take care of these people at least around our campus. But later we found that might become unwieldy. So otherwise we would have done that one. It was on the anvil, but if there is necessary, we will be doing that. Okay. And regarding the sanitizers, as you know, our chemistry department and the ERA have been working at it, which they are still working at it to get the government approval. And now the ERA is trying to work what they could do for the locust pest. Already they have started working. So the Jesuits are always on the lookout how we can be at the service of the needy.
Thank you, Father. Do you have a question from Jesudas Arakyam Sengol? Could you add any medicine practitioner, if any?
Medicine on what?
People who practice medicine, practitioners of medicine, if any. Would you know?
What we could do?
No, Father. The Jesudas is asking, Could you add Jesuit medicine practitioners, if any? That is his question.
Oh, yes. You know that in the history, according to the canon law, two professionals were not expected to become priests. One category is the lawyers, other categories are the doctors. The reason is, according to the tradition, lawyers have to say lies sometimes, and the priest, the doctor, has to deal with the bodies of the people, especially women. That is why you don't find many Jesuit doctors. But you see, the former general, Father Pedro Arrupe, was a doctor. One of my own theology companions in Germany was a medical doctor before becoming Jesuits. And in the US, we have at least 5 or 6 medical schools run by the Jesuits. They have 28 medical, 28 universities, 5, 6. They have very well-known medical colleges like Loyola University, Chicago, St. Louis University, St. Louis, Missouri, and other places. We have many medical facilities, and some of the doctors are working there. The last year, I spent 2 months in Creighton University. At least 2 medical doctors are Jesuits. One is the dean of the school, another is a medical practitioner in the school. There are not many, but some are there already.
Father, thank you. We have 2 more questions. One is, what could be the focus for Jesuits in the 21st century, given the uncertainty faced by the century, widening inequality? That is question one. We'll go with this question, Father. What could be the focus for Jesuits in the 21st century?
See, always the basis of the matrix of the Jesuits is education. And the general congregations are setting the note. From the faith that does justice, we have moved into faith and reconciliation. That is the last general congregation. Reconciliation with God, reconciliation with our neighbors, reconciliation with our common home, that is the care of the nature. This is in the light of Laudato Si. So when we have the reconciliation with others, the human equality, dignity, all those things are coming, and the reconciliation with the nature is how much we are responsible to the nature, the home we live. We are not the exploiters of the nature, we are the stewards, people who act responsibly with the nature. So this is the trend or thrust point that the Jesuits are moving, but always we would have empowering the marginalized. People who are at the bottom of the social pyramid, they should be liberated first and taken to the pinnacle of the same social pyramid as decision-making leaders. This is ultimately the goal of the Jesuits.
Father, thank you. We have a question in continuation with the medicine, very particular question. Is there any reason for not allowing Indian Jesuits to study medicine?
Probably the reason what I mentioned there may be the reason there. Another one, we have problem when it comes to medicine. You know, we have to break our studies so many times. 16 years training, you are there, and whether you are going to do your medicine before you enter the society, after 16 years you are going to become outdated, or after 16 years you are going to study when you become priest, you are already 33 in the 30s. So this may be the reason, but it is, if anyone comes and joins the Jesuit order as priest, and they would be able to do that. But the main problem, as I see practical one, is the long duration of formation with the break. You know, you have to do philosophy, theology, regency, and all those things. These breaks will affect the effectiveness of the medical practice.
Yes, Father, thank you. We have a question from Puducherry, Jhansi. Reverend Father, is sharing the gospel enough, or should we persevere to see the transformation? Could you please help me understand the real concept of evangelization? or evangelist?
Evangelization can be taken as just preaching and converting. Evangelization also would mean what Jesus did. Jesus started a movement. He said, people are more important than religious regulations. Take care of them, go and search of them. So that is the religion in day-to-day life. So one thing is your personal relationship with God, your prayer. That is the vertical relationship. But what is more important is horizontal relationship. That's why Jesus said all the 10 commandments will be put into two: love God, love your neighbor. Both are equally important. So whatever your faith is with God should be seen in your good works for the others.
Thank you.
So live up your faith.
Okay. Thank you, Father. We have a question from Dr. K.S. Antonisamy, HOD of English Department of English. The question is very straightforward, Father. Jesuits have contributed to every field at national, international level. What would be the focus of Jesuits in future? What field should they be, would they be concentrating?
If I can say, empowering the marginalized. Whichever way you interpret it, whether they are the migrants, or they are the tribals, or they are the Dalits, or economically poor, people at the bottom of the social pyramid should be empowered. That is the ultimate goal of the Jesuits. Whether they are doing pastoral work, or academic work, or social action work, or mercy work, all these things, only one thing in common: that empower the needy.
Yes, Father. Thank you, Father. We have a question from Father Rex Angelo. Rex Angelo has a long question, but I will try to. Thanks, Father Francis Xavier, for the most inspiring presentation. It is amazing to see the great contributions of Jesuits all over the world. It should motivate us, Jesuits, and our collaborators to contribute our might to the society at a larger level. My question is this. Our pioneer Jesuits have always worked with the local governments, kings, prime ministers, presidents, and all influential people, and therefore, they were very successful. At present, can you please articulate in what way we could do that?
It depends on what stand we take. Whether you take top-down attitude or bottom-up attitude. Earlier, the Middle Ages, the understanding was if you convert to the king or the feudal lord, the people will be automatically converted. But today, we are in the democratic world where people also matter much. So we have to be working on both sides, and Jesuit side, but more today we understand the Jesuit bottom-up view of the world. How do we empower the people? Are we with the people? And we should not become the political powers, because party politics, if we get into that, you are going to have a problem. But we should have the top-down, we can help in policy making to the governments or in serving in some planning commission, whatever it is. But mostly we are people where we are for bottom-up empowerment.
Father, thank you. We would take the last two questions. One from Professor Charles Surrey, another one from Arul Suju. Father, in which field Jesuits have not contributed or need to contribute more? Question one. You could answer, Father.
Yeah, I think one area they have not landed on the moon. I mean, they are not much into that. But practically in all the areas, I see the Jesuits have been doing, whether it is poetry or writing or social work or legal, medical, everywhere. Whatever I could think of, Jesuits are there. So the Jesuit order is so rich. Only thing in this, the science of the outside space science, I don't think much the Jesuits are doing because maybe they are not interested in that.
Thank you, Father. We have variety of comments on the part of your inspiring speech, the presentation you made this evening. And we could conclude with one last question from Professor Charles Duray. Are social concerns slowly replacing traditional academic concerns for the Jesuits today? Are social concerns slowly replacing the traditional academic concerns for the Jesuits today?
I would rephrase it that social concern transforms our academic work. Everywhere we are talking about how we are doing, whether you take the admission policy or whether we have administrative policies, we go for the people at the bottom of the pyramid, but we make them as excellent when they come out of the institutions. That is the challenge and privilege of the Jesuits. You go and cater to the people at the margins so that they become leaders in the center of the society. So I would say it is not replacing, it is transforming the educational aspects.
Yes, Father. And so, my friends, this evening I would like to express my gratitude on behalf of you to Father Rector. The more than the presentation, your questions are very engaging. And of course, if all those who need the presentation, I will be happy to send it to you through your email. So on behalf of you and everyone present this evening, 80 people on the Google Meet and 60 people on the live streaming, I would like to thank Father Rector for presenting extraordinary presentation on the global contributions of the Jesuits. I thank you. I thank everyone, and good evening and good night, and we end. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and for listening. Special thanks to Father Justin Prabhu and Thomas Edition. And thanks for listening. It is very inspiring to listen from you and especially your questions. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, Father.